Collider Movie Talk for movie fans. I'm your host, Wendy Lee, and this is our daily show where we bring you the latest news from the world of movies, plus some insight to what it all means. Joining us today is Dennis Tzeng.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another brand new episode of Collider Movie Talk. It's Friday. It's not only Friday, it is Star Wars The Last Jedi Day. Hope a bunch of you guys had watched it last night, or you're watching it today, or sometime this weekend. We have a bunch of stuff up on our channel you can check out. We have our non-spoilers reviews, we have our spoiler reviews, we have a bunch of things you missed, ending explained, a bunch of videos for that. Sorry for the delay for our live stream. We had some technical difficulties earlier today, but in good news, we crossed 400,000 subscribers. Yeah! 400,000 subscribers. Wendy, who else is joining us today?
Joining us today is Perri Nemiroff.
Hi, guys. I love an excuse to be a grandma for a day. I'm really happy. I hope whoever saw Last Jedi enjoyed it. I hope you guys are having a good morning. So happy we are live right now.
And having a really hard time deciding what color headphone he wants, John Rocha.
It's true. It's true. I just need something to listen to. Star Wars. I'm still wearing the same clothes I wore last night. We talked about it all through the night because there were 70 of us that went, not 66, 70 of us, and it was insane. And so we talked about it all through the night. So much to talk about. So much to talk about that movie.
Was that a joke?
No, I'm still wearing the same
clothes.
Go take a look at my Instagram. This is what I wore last night.
Well, I think we're going to have to scoot a little bit over to the right.
TMI.
I slept maybe 2 or 3 hours and then got back into the clothes because you know what? I only wore it for a couple hours.
To be fair, I wore this jacket to the movie last night.
There you
too.
go.
Right.
That's right.
All right. Wendy, what do we got first?
That is like enough of this talk. All right. After the monumental news broke early Thursday that Disney has purchased a sizable chunk of the 21st Century Fox, talk immediately turned to X-Men and Fantastic Four and whether they could possibly join the Avengers in a movie later on down the line. During a conference call with investors, Disney CEO Bob Iger confirmed that the MCU will expand to include those properties, including Deadpool. But when it comes to Deadpool, does that mean he can keep an R rating? Wall Street Journal reporter Ben Fritz revealed that Iger also commented on Deadpool, noting that an R-rated Marvel movie could still have a place under the Marvel brand, as long as Disney lets the audience know what's coming. Dennis, thoughts on X-Men, Fantastic Four, and Deadpool joining the MCU, and do you think Disney will keep Deadpool's R rating?
Well, first of all, I'm very glad that Fox had done Deadpool and Logan R-rated before it got to Disney. Because there's no chance whatsoever if Disney acquired these properties and later would have made it R-rated movies. But because Fox already did it, they made them successful. Now Disney is, you know, the thing about the studios, even with someone like Disney that's more geared towards kids or a younger audience, money is money. And so they're more willing to do it now. In terms of Deadpool, yeah, I could see them doing it, but they definitely should keep it away from the MCU in terms of, they should say like it's part of it, much like how you watch the Netflix shows and they're part of the MCU. But really, like Punisher, Rocha, you and me did a bunch of Punisher reviews.
Yeah.
Really, it didn't interact much with the rest of the universe. Not even just the MCU, the movies, but even the television shows. There's very few connections to it. So if they do that with Deadpool, I think they're all right. I don't really want to see that Deadpool show up like in Avengers or, you know what I mean? Like, I just don't see it. Love that X-Men's going to be part of it. Fantastic Four, you know, that's something that they're going to have to reboot in some ways. I think it might be even better for them to bring those characters into other movies first, maybe a Doctor Strange or something else. Introduce them that way before they launch an actual full-on reboot. Perri, what do you think?
I am hoping that they take the Fantastic Four and leave everything that is already established and has already had a movie released alone. Because as we've been talking about this, as it was a rumor and then it became more and more realistic as something that would really happen, yeah, as a fan of the X-Men and as a fan of the MCU right now, it's a thrilling idea to think about them mashing up and coming together. But now that this is a real thing and I'm actually looking at all the little details, the R-rated thing and the risk-taking thing really does concern me, because one of the great things about the MCU is they take risks. I'm not saying that every single movie is exactly like ones that have come and gone before, but part of the reason the MCU works so well as a cinematic universe is that it does all feel like it is taking place in the same space. Yes, Cosmic and Earth have very distinct styles and even types of comedy in them, but they all can come together in something like Infinity War. taking Deadpool as he's already been established, taking some of the mutants as they've already been established, especially when you have them going to darker territory with something like New Mutants, doing something a little different with Dark Phoenix. I just have a bad feeling that if they take that and put that into the MCU, it's just going to be so much more the same without any risk. Whereas if they left the X-Men separate, but then, you know, use this situation to their advantage and introduce the Fantastic Four or maybe other characters that we're not even thinking of in the MCU as it is now, then we could have two great things. Why are we limiting ourselves to just one?
Rocha?
Yeah, this is an interesting thing to explore because it's going to be 18 months before this deal actually goes through, right?
Yeah,
so they have some time to like kind of figure this all out and see how people react to the New Mutant stuff that's coming out, react to a Deadpool 2 sequel. So they have it's almost like a test run to see what the audience's flavor for this is. And if these films don't quite grab the audience's attention, then Disney can step in with some kind of credibility and say, hey, we're going to take this over and maybe change it a little bit, make it more accessible. Because you're right, Dennis, they're about the money, the green money. That's what they're about. And so if they have to kind of shave the edges off the R rating on Deadpool and still make it PG-13, so you can still make a lot of those jokes, but not necessarily quite as far, people might still be up for seeing it. And I think we saw the template with Hulk and we saw the template with Spider-Man. Introduce these characters in other movies slowly but surely. Because, I mean, the House of M is a possibility now. Infinity War fully realized is a possibility now. Avengers vs. X-Men is a possibility now. And that may be how they do it, where it's Avengers vs. X-Men. X-Men come in a certain way and they fight. But now we have to figure out recasting of Wolverine, recasting. You know, we recast with Sophie Turner, with Dark Phoenix, and all that. So that kind of recasting is taken care of. But Wolverine is a big recast. It's on the level of Batman. Like people will now, it's been built up. It's on the level of Batman. Like who's going to play this? So there's a lot to go around. And Bob Iger in 2016 said we are not making any R-rated superhero movies. But in 2017 with this merger, he's like, if we let the audience know ahead of time of what's going to happen, blah blah blah. And Ryan Reynolds is not stopping. We've seen his tweets ever since this stuff's been announced. He's pushed the boundaries of how far he's letting Disney know, this is how I'm going to do Deadpool. I'm letting you know. The jokes about the Matterhorn, all that stuff. So we do know that he is going to push the boundaries. So do I think they're going to do an R-rated movie? I think it's certainly possible depending on how all this other property goes down. Fantastic Four and X-Men, I think the smartest thing to do is introduce Fantastic Four like they did Hulk, like they did Spider-Man. As far as X-Men, let all this stuff play out, and then they can decide what they're going to do 18 months down the road. And I'm sure they're already putting plans in place to see what happens depending on the results of everything, what they're going to do.
But you said probably. Let's get a definitive yes
Sure.
or no. I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say there will be an R-rated Deadpool movie under Disney.
So you think Deadpool 3 could be
Yes.
R-rated, right? Because
Yes.
Deadpool 2 is already going to be
Yes,
R-rated.
yes.
Okay.
Yes. Deadpool 3, R-rated or not, under Disney. Perry?
I'm going to say yes because I'm going to assume that Deadpool 2 is going to make a whole lot of money again and really business. That's what it comes down to.
I will say yes because Disney worked with Miramax, and Miramax released a lot of R-rated films where they were under Disney's
And they had
arm.
Touchstone as well.
And Touchstone, right. So it's certainly possible.
Okay, Wendy, rated R, Deadpool 3.
I feel like I'm on X Factor right now or America's Got Talent. That's a yes for me.
Yeah.
It's like comes down to me. I think it's a yes. If it's a no and they go away from the R rating, like that's a huge step backwards for these kind of movies. So please, Disney, keep the R rating.
Yeah, I mean, I loved what they did with Deadpool. I loved
Yeah.
what they did with Logan. I hope they keep doing that. I mean, it's Disney, so they're not going to try that too much. But I think for certain things, I mean, we saw how far they pushed it with Punisher, but that was more in the television realm, which, I think that's geared towards an older audience. So.
Well, and that's a great point to bring up because how are they going to handle Legion? How are they going to handle the Gifted?
Yeah.
Are they going to now move them into the situation?
Well, when we're talking about compartmentalizing things like that,
Yeah.
it is very easy for me as someone who is not caught up on the Marvel Netflix stuff to separate that. Like, I know they do exist in the same space, but I think it's easier for the general viewing public, the masses that go see this movie, to not be confused by all that material. Whereas when you have two cinematic universes / franchises existing side by side and you mash them up or you don't mash them up, that's when the questions start to come up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I prefer that they have them in the universe, but maybe just keep them a little separated on their own, kind of almost a standalone type of thing. All right, Wendy, what's up next?
With Justice League in the rearview mirror, fans are now looking to next year's Aquaman to see what else Warner Brothers DCEU will bring to the table. James Wan has now finished production, is onto post-production, with speculation from fans now wondering if the movie will feature 3 villains. This comes from casting announcements that have Patrick Wilson playing Aquaman's half-brother Orm, aka the Ocean Master, Abdul Mateen playing Black Manta, and Dolph Lundgren playing King Nereus. According to Wan himself, however, that is not the case. The filmmaker told EW, "This is what I'll say. I don't have 3 villains. I think that's ridiculous. I would never go into an origin movie with 3 villains. We don't even know the main character, let alone the world and its antagonist. I believe in taking baby steps. I want to introduce Arthur Curry in a more emotional and powerful way, introduce Mara, played by Amber Heard, and of course there's Nicole Kidman and Tamara Morrison playing his parents. We know Black Manta is in there, but I will say this. Patrick Wilson is the main antagonist in this film. I wouldn't necessarily say villain, but he is the antagonist." Rocha, thoughts on James Wan's comments about the villains in Aquaman?
Well, first of all, shout out to Tamara Morrison, who gets to be Django Fett and gets to be Aquaman's dad. That's how you do it, son. You slide around the edges and then get those roles when you can get them. But I think what James Wan is doing here is great political talk. 3 villains. Yeah, there's not going to be 3 villains. Ocean Master is going to be the main villain. It doesn't mean Black Manta isn't going to be created and be the villain in the second movie. And it certainly doesn't mean that King Nereus is not going to appear, but because King Nereus' story is that he is in love with Mira and wants to be with Mira. So he is on a mission to kill Arthur all the time, and he has sent Mira in the comics to kill Arthur. But she's always resisted him for the most part. Black Manta is an interesting story to explore because the original is that he was a sexually molested child who worked on the docks and the ship, and he fought back, and he asked for Aquaman to help him and Aquaman didn't help him, and he killed his tormentor and then became Black Manta. There's another origin story. Black Manta was an autistic kid who was upset by cotton sheets and all this kind of stuff. So then he develops and he slams into Aquaman. So there's a lot with Black Manta that you can create where he can blame Aquaman for his creation and therefore become his villain. But it could be further on down the road in the film. And I think we're only going to get sparse stuff with King Nereus because it's Dolph Lundgren. You don't want to give him too much screen time. And so the main antagonist is correct. It's going to be Patrick Wilson, but it doesn't mean those other 2 won't appear. They just won't be actively the main villains.
Yeah, I love the statement by James Wan because he's showing that he has focus. He understands we don't know much about Aquaman. We saw him in Justice League, but there's very little back history, and to focus more on him, and we don't want a multiple villain situation. No. I mean, look how that's panned out in the past. Spider-Man 3, Amazing Spider-Man 2.
The Batman movies, the last 2 Schumacher movies. Yeah.
Like it doesn't really work, and he knows that. And you're right, they can just introduce these characters much like they did with Doctor Strange. They had Chiwetel Ejiofor as Mordo, and he was in the movie, but he was not the villain. And then you see the villain turn at the end. They're setting up for the next one. So they can do that with the other characters. And so I think that's the route that he's going to go. Perri?
Yeah, that was kind of what crossed my mind. Some sort of, if Patrick Wilson is, the main big bad, or actually I loved how he put this as calling him an antagonist and not a villain, because really, I think the words are interchangeable to a degree where folks tend to throw them out, not knowing what one could mean versus the other. But the idea of them having a relationship, that the first thing that popped in my mind was Loki and Thor, where they could have that kind of relationship and he can be a bad presence in this movie, but in a way that enhances Aquaman as a character. And that sounds like a much more interesting hero-villain dynamic to me. And there I'm using the V word. But with Black Manta, the thing that crossed my mind is, and I want to ask you about this, knowing that you know the source material, what would you say if Black Manta winds up being like a stepping stone kind of villain, someone he has to stop and then just to prove himself or something?
I think that would be such a disservice to Black Manta because he is so... I mean, you can go back to the Super Friends to see how connected Black Manta is to Aquaman. He was the main villain in that animated show we grew up with in the 70s. So, like, he has been such an integral part to Aquaman, that more than Ocean Master. People think of Black Manta more than Ocean Master. So I'd be surprised if they made him a cursory villain at best. If anything, it might be a small battle, but then it motivates him to get even more powerful and get even more strong. So when he comes back, he's able to fight Aquaman on the same level. So that's certainly possible, but you can't destroy Black Manta or make him like easily defeatable and then just kick him out of the series. I would be shocked by that.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Now we're moving on to buy or sell. Wendy, what do we got first?
Warner Brothers has released the first Ocean's 8 poster for the upcoming spin-off from Steven Soderbergh's Ocean's trilogy. Hunger Games filmmaker Gary Ross directs the new film, which stars Sandra Bullock as Debbie Ocean, the sister of George Clooney's Danny Ocean. When this film begins, she is fresh out of prison and assembles a team of her own to pull off a unique heist at the Met Gala. Ocean's 8 opens in theaters on June 8th, 2018. Perry, buy or sell the first poster for Ocean's 8?
I have a feeling I might be in the minority on this one, but I'm going to buy it. So I see the flaws in it, and I will predict the flaws, and I will say I can identify these same flaws myself when I'm looking at it. But in general, when I picture that banner hanging in a movie theater, and even when I was just scrolling through my Twitter feed the other day, it caught my eye. The big, bold red color paired with their black outfits and the white font, it caught my eye. So in that sense, it's a success. But when you're thinking of an ensemble movie with so many famous faces in it, it is a little weird to me that you could barely make out their faces. And then when you look how squished all their names are at the top, that's your selling point right there. And you kind of reduce the power of it. But if some folks have the reaction that I did, where they're scrolling through something, they stop and take a second look, then they do get the best of both worlds there. So it is a buy for me.
Sell. This is not a good poster. It looks generic. I thought I mentioned this yesterday when we were talking about it. I was like, it looks like it's like they're posing for some like an album cover, like a U2 album cover. They're all wearing sunglasses. You can't tell who any of the famous people are on there. And granted, the first Ocean's 11 poster didn't have their faces, but they had this cool silhouette thing where their shadow ended up being the 11. It stood out. This looks so generic to me, and then And then, the tagline: "Every con has its pros."
Oh my God!
Wow.
Wow, Dennis.
Dennis
Great.
Dennis is selling this
Promote
poster.
Dennis to the haters
Rocha.
corner.
Look, I know you can't do a close-up, but this is the Ocean's 11 poster that came out for it. So the red and black is very symbolic of the original Ocean's 11, one that Soderbergh did, obviously not the one Sinatra did. So it makes sense to make it kind of have the same kind of color scheme when it's coming out. But I do sell the poster, not because it isn't it's got a strong, powerful colors like Perry mentioned. I dig this strong power. The thing is, their faces are from the side, so you're not really seeing them. And I get it, because like they're criminals or thieves or whatever, they're going to steal money, so you don't want to like necessarily identify them. But also the descending order, it kind of implies that this is the descending order of importance of the actresses, and that bothers me. They should all be on par across the board, but you see it, and it's like Sandra Bullock, Kate Blanchett, Mindy Kaling, and it gets smaller and smaller and smaller until you get to the last actress there. And so for me, that conveys something that I don't think is a positive overall. I think they should all be on the same level coming out of those pillars. So that
You
makes
could
it
say the same thing about that one.
Right,
so
you
the
could.
person in
And
the
I
front
would have
is
had-
most important.
Of course, because
than
it's
the guy in
George
the
Clooney and
back.
Brad Pitt,
Yeah, but
Matt
the poster
Damon.
that you showed was
But
not
then
the
you can see their
That's not
faces.
the one that
Right.
people really know.
Right,
The one
right.
they really know is the silhouette one with the 11 on it.
I'm just showing you the one that was hanging in my house,
Okay.
you know. But their faces are covered up as well. But at least you see their faces. With this, you can just see the side. You know what I'm saying? So this is the reason I sell it, because I'm looking forward to
I'm
this.
looking
I
forward
wanted
to-
to see the movie. I want to see the movie.
Yeah, I'm not saying I'm not looking forward. I
Right.
like Gary Ross. I like what he did with Hunger Games and also Seabiscuit.
Yeah.
And then, the cast I think is great. And I don't mind the idea of a spin-off of Ocean's 11. I just don't like this poster.
Yeah.
So. All right, what's next?
It looks like a Ray-Ban ad.
Yeah.
Like
it
come
just-
buy our sunglasses.
It does,
It
because
looks generic.
aren't those the Ray-Ban colors too?
Yeah.
All they
Yeah.
would need is the font.
There's a new
I do
campaign
want
for you. You
the
can
large
just
majority of those sunglasses.
I don't know why you have Bullock turn away and Hathaway more noticeable than
She's
Bullock.
checking out her
Bullock is your-
team.
Bullock
That's what she's
is your-
doing. She's like
is your
checking out
star.
her team.
But then you have the sunglasses on them, and you're
Yeah.
like, okay,
Yeah.
you can kind of recognize them, kind of not,
And they put Aquafina all the way in the back there. So I don't know. It's just for me. It's just like keep them on the same level.
Yeah. All right, what's next?
The marketing for Deadpool 2 continues with star and producer Ryan Reynolds revealing a new banner on his Twitter account. Atomic Blonde's David Leitch steps into the director chair this time around with Josh Brolin as Cable and Zazie Beetz Domino introduced to the cast, alongside returning members TJ Miller, Brianna Hildebrand, Miranda Baccarin, Leslie Uggam, and Stephen Kopichik. Deadpool 2 opens in theaters on June 1st, 2018. Dennis, buy or sell the new poster for Deadpool 2?
Oh, I'm definitely buying this. I mean, Deadpool is continuing the same kind of irreverent, subversive marketing campaign that they had with the first one. And there's another example. They take an iconic, religious image, and then they've turned it into like this, the creation of Adam by Michelangelo. Yeah, I think it's hilarious. I don't know if what they're trying to say, because we already know Deadpool's origin story. In this case, Cable did not create Deadpool, but I think it's just a funny picture. Perri?
I have a feeling that's probably true. I'm definitely buying this because we all know how well the first marketing campaign was received for the first movie, and they're just keeping it up, and they're getting kind of crazier and in ways that I wouldn't expect with plays like this. And then the Good Housekeeping thing, it's like a really fun and kind of dynamic and engaging marketing campaign. I mean, I'm not going to talk about this image right now, but I was flipping through that Good Housekeeping stuff for a while, and it's really thoughtful and detailed. And with imagery like this, it is going to be fun come movie release time when you've got this collection of funny and also kind of beautiful artwork. So I wouldn't mind having this collection at the end. It's a huge buy for me.
Rocha?
Dennis, you just came up with my rap name, Michelangelo. I love it. Michelangelo, dog. No, listen, this poster is fantastic. I absolutely buy it because not just the imagery of it, right? The gun into the finger is just brilliant. But the second coming, that just is hilariously brilliant to just put it there subtly at the bottom. This is the first poster they've released that I've really thought captured the spirit of the first movie completely. I didn't like the housekeeping that much. I didn't like the Norman Rockwell one that much. This one I absolutely love, and I think the imagery is hilarious. And the way he's even lying against it, you as Deadpool would do, all chill, and Brolin coming at him. But Brolin is looking. I think he's looking at you. If I can see this real quick, he's looking at the viewer or looking at him, and because that eye is all wicked. So I dig that, and I dig the teddy bear on the side. Like, that's just brilliant on the side of his pants, right on the side of his pants.
Cute. I missed it.
And it's on his belt. It's just all of it is very, very funny. So absolutely buy it.
So Riley writes our
and he's on a beanbag.
Riley writes our show notes, right?
Yeah.
And he included some facts of this.
Oh.
But one thing I didn't realize, because I thought Riley was messing with me, but I read this. This is actually the synopsis that Deadpool has, which is: after surviving a near-fatal bovine attack, a disfigured cafeteria chef, Wade Wilson, struggles to fulfill his dream of becoming Mayberry's hottest bartender while also learning to cope with his lost sense of taste. And it goes on and on. It's hilarious. That is the official synopsis of Deadpool 2, which falls in line with them completely. They don't care. They don't need to tell you what the story. You're gonna go watch it because of Deadpool.
When you consider that, though, it goes to show, because we're always saying things when they release too much footage. Oh, I didn't even need that. I know what this franchise is from the start. That to me is them recognizing that and running with it. So I do wonder if most of the trailers from here on out are going to be some sort of silly parody approach with very minimal footage until we get to the day of release. And as much as I want to see Deadpool 2 footage, I wouldn't mind if they took a risk and went with that for all of their marketing going forward.
All right, what's next, Wendy?
THR reports that John Wick director Chad Stahelski is reteaming with his Wick producer to adapt the Ed Brubaker comic Kill or Be Killed. The movie tells the story of a depressed college student who attempts suicide, only to survive due to unlikely events. He is soon visited by a demon who explains that he was the one who spared the student's life, and going forward will be allowed to live 1 month for every person he kills. A release date has not been determined. Perri, buy or sell Chad Stahelski directing an adaptation of Kill or Be Killed?
Buy. Big buy. He has proven himself to be a very talented solo director. So, one, why wouldn't I be excited no matter what his name was attached to? And two, having not read the source material, but just a brief synopsis of it, that's a really interesting idea, and a really interesting idea for someone that has already proven himself on a franchise like John Wick, because there's some similarities you can make, but at the same time, there's so many fun little elements of that story to think of that just feel so clever and inventive to me. So I'm really looking forward, and I don't know exactly when he's going to make this because he's got a couple other things on his to-do list right now, but I hope they do get moving on this pretty soon. And one of the things I really like about this, if you look at the synopsis, is they call it a thriller and a deconstruction of vigilante. I'm not going to be able to say it. Vigilante, yeah.
Vigilantism?
I don't know why I can't speak that word. But that to me sounds interesting because we are always covering things about vigilantes and whether it's good or bad. And just when you throw the word deconstruction at the beginning of it, it does make me think that this might be a deeper exploration than we've seen before.
Rocha?
Vigilante.
Vigilantism.
Vigilantism.
She can't say it because she doesn't
Vigilantism.
believe in it. Perri is by the book person. She's very much about the rules and the laws of life. She doesn't like people violating,
So she
taking
doesn't
laws
like
in her own
Batman.
hands. She doesn't like Batman. She's not a big fan of Batman.
What
I'm
are
joking.
you
I don't know if that's
talking about?
Don't put words in her
Thank you,
mouth.
Wendy.
She likes pure evil like Grand Moff Tarkin. She doesn't like vigilantes. Those
Well,
are
She is
out of
wearing a
control evil.
Moff
That's out of
I am a
control.
Tarkin fan,
Hey, you
and you're
are.
a Vest fan. Glad
Yeah.
we can clear all that up.
There we go.
That you wore since last night.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. You got to stay clean. Listen, here's the deal. I love this idea because Stahelski did such a great job on John Wick 2. Now, obviously, John Wick 1 was great, but following up a sequel and making it just as good as the first one was really a fantastic job by him. So I'm cool with this. And Ed Brubaker is great material. He's written so many fantastic comics, and this is such a nice twist on this idea of you got to kill people. It's almost like Brad Pitt in Interview with the Vampire, right? He's trying to kill like the creatures that aren't. He's not trying to kill innocent creatures, right? He's trying to kill evil people. So this guy, to survive, is trying to find ways to survive where he kills what he deems to be evil people, and then has to explore whether he's doing the right thing by killing these people, explore his own thoughts about it, because I'm sure it's not something that he ever thought he was going to do, and he killed himself because of a love triangle, so to speak. You know, this was his. So what's wrong with him that he wanted to commit suicide because he was helping his best friend? He was cheating with his best friends, like all this kind of stuff that was happening. So there's a lot for him to explore as he's going down on this vigilante path. And this feels like it's never ending too with Kill or Be Killed. So I look forward to see what they can do with it.
Yeah, I'm going to buy it purely on the fact that the director. Yeah, thanks for tossing me right there.
Dropping the ball, Rocha.
I'm going to buy it purely because of Chad Stahelski, because he co-directed John Wick, the first one, and then solo directed the second one. The only question I have is with the storyline. I mean, I've read Ed Brubaker, some of his Captain America stuff, and I enjoyed that. With the question about the premise is, how are they going to explain, and I'm sure they do in the comic book, why he wants to continue living? Because if he wants, he has to kill someone to live another month. Right. Because he originally was committing suicide. What is that newfound desire to live? Right. Why does he have that? And you've got to convey that strongly in the movie.
And what's his responsibility to this demon? And is this demon telling him the truth about? Obviously, he's dying at the end of every month, but like, if you're beholden to a demon for your life, how good is your life actually going to be? In the end, because in the end, no matter how much good you do, you're going to have to kill.
All right. What's the last buy or sell?
THR reports that a biopic about Marlon Brando is in the works, with Brian Oliver's New Republic Pictures optioning the memoir by George England entitled The Way It's Never Been Done Before. England is Brando's longtime friend and former director who had a friendship with the two-time Oscar winner spanning 5 decades that covered all the ups and downs in the actor's career and personal life. Oliver said of the project that the movie makes for both an epic portrayal of the greatest actor ever to grace the silver screen and an intimate story of two men with almost a brotherly bond. No word on casting or when we can expect the movie to land in theaters. Rocha, buy or sell a memoir about Marlon Brando?
Oh, I absolutely buy this. I mean, I've read 3 or 4 biographies on Brando. When you're coming up as an actor, Brando, Olivier, these are the names that you're told about. And so you study and read and learn and you watch their movies. And, and there's tragedy with Brando, I mean, he was a guy who was constantly searching for respect and love from his father and never got it. And it played out in his acting. And his acting is so animalistic, so primal, so fantastic and visceral when you watch him on the waterfront. He's so sweet and tender, yet so violent at certain moments. And you watch him in Streetcar Named Desire, there's so much power at the beginning. But then the progression of his life, where at the tragedy of the death of his son and his daughter and the breakup of the marriages, the gaining of the weight, all of this, like there's so much to explore with Brando. The romances, and even recently we had that Last Tango in Paris controversy where he essentially sexually assaulted his co-star. So there's a lot to explore with Brando, and people love and respect Brando's acting. And of course, the many comebacks, the Godfather comeback, Into the Apocalypse Now, and then the frustrations Coppola had working with him. So this is a life rich with stories and adventures and excitement, and so and some difficult things to confront on screen. So as a fan of biopics as the outlaw, I couldn't not buy this situation, and I hope they do it well, because who are you going to cast as Brando? That's incredibly tough. I mean, Franco is the only James Dean I've ever seen that was damn good. Because when you're going for iconic actors, it's really tough to find the right actors to bring them to life. I don't
I'm going to buy it as well because the source or the subject is so interesting about Marlon Brando. My question is, one, is the movie going to be sanitized where they're just going to tell only the good stuff about Brando, or they're going to get into some of the darker parts of his past? And why? And also, why did they choose this book out of? There's like so many books on Brando. I know that the author was friends with him. He had a close relationship with him, but in that way, like, is it going to taint kind of the perspective that we're going to get?
Yeah. I actually think it's the opposite. So I've never read this specific book, so I was looking up some thoughts on it, and the Birth Movies Death article about this movie happening described it as it paints Brando as a man who is driven by his own demons and suspicious of nearly everyone around him. So it's not necessarily something, I mean, they flat out say here, it's not necessarily the kindest remembrance. And that to me is why I'm buying this story, because we're constantly talking about legends and icons in the industry and, oh, let's make a movie about them. And, I do think that some of those stories are well worth telling on the big screen. And especially when they're people that I admire, I want to see it. But what makes this stand out from the pack is the fact that maybe it's not the kindest remembrance. I want it to be a true one, though. And I also love the idea of adapting this particular book because it's not just a story about his rise to fame and his own struggles. It's also going to tell the story about their friendship and their working relationship. And that, to me, is what's going to make this stand out from other things. So I'm buying it.
All right, guys, before we get on to mailbag, and I remind you, we're going to take your live tour questions at the end of the show. You can tweet us at Collider Video, and Wendy will pick out a few. I remind you that we dropped another top 50 episode today. Also, we had a special Jedi Council yesterday with Bobby Monahan.
Yeah.
He was
Bobby Monahan.
He was a fantastic. I didn't know how kind of big a Star Wars nerd he was. So he gave his opinions. And we also have another video next week, I think we're releasing with him on it, talking spoilers, because I think that one's completely non-spoilers. We have a Schmodown ranking special coming out today, and also Awesome Tackler. Check that out on Verizon Go 90. Wendy, what do we get up first for mailbag?
This one comes from Mazen El Araisi, who writes, "Hello, Collider crew. Earlier this week, I lost someone who was near and dear to me, and I guess ironically, I had pre-purchased the day before a ticket for Coco for the day after. I wanted to cancel, but my friend convinced me to go. It ended up being a very therapeutic experience. I teared up more than once and came out of it with a bit of acceptance, and it'll take some time. What other movies do you consider therapeutic, and have you ever watched a movie that hit you personally at the right time? Thank you for choosing my question. Rest in peace, Uncle Fawad. Sorry if I'm saying that wrong. Loved, missed, never forgotten." From Mason.
Perri, you have one in mind?
Yeah, and I just wanted to express my sincere condolences to Mason, but really good on you for sharing something like this, because a movie is something that I do lean on when I'm bummed about just about anything in my life, whether it's a really serious thing or something even small where I just need a quick pick-me-up, and getting the opportunity to actually say movies that have that effect on you can maybe help somebody else. So sharing your story, I think, is going to have some really positive results. My example, it's not a serious situation quite like Mason's, but one time when I was in New York and I was trying to get a job somewhere because I had just finished a freelance job and ran out of hours, and I love to work, so not having a job completely rattles me. And I applied for a job that I really, really wanted, and I didn't get it. And I found out I didn't get it while I was on my way into the city, so then I was stuck in the city all day waiting for a specific screening, and all I wanted to do was basically get to Penn Station, turn around, and go home. But instead, I went to that movie, and I walked out feeling so much better because I had so much fun, and it was Zombieland. I will never forget that screening. I will never forget the person who took me to that screening, because really I walked in on like the verge of tears, and I walked out just having had, an hour and a half, 2 hours of completely forgetting about my problem, having had a great time, and I'm glad I wound up seeing it that day.
Rocha?
I think for me, I don't know if I've said this before, but when my father passed away from cancer in 2008, so Maz, absolutely love and condolences for what you're going through. I absolutely get it. Sometimes you have to power through and go the movie, and yeah, it can be very therapeutic, and that's why movies are important. That's why we do what we do, because we love them and they affect our lives so much. They change our lives so much, or they console us in certain times. For me, it was About Time, that British movie. I had no idea that it was going to destroy me the way it did. I was under a year of the loss of my dad, and when you lose someone who's really important to you, you have these waves of emotion that come out of nowhere. Out of nowhere, you know, it can be something really small. All of a sudden, you're a mess on the ground, you know. And with About Time, it was near the end of the movie when he has the realization of what's going to happen between him and his dad because of this other blessed event in his life, and it broke me, just broke me, because I had the imagery of having this conversation with my own father before he passed. If I had been in that situation, and I just shattered in the theater. And my friend was there with me and consoled me after, like, keep rubbing my back as I was crying through the whole end of that movie. And when I walked out and I got in the car, I think for me personally, it was the beginning of the process of learning to accept his passing. And it was because I was able to just release it. And so movies do such incredible work in doing that. So, you know, respect that you went through Coco. Hey, I thought about my parents at the end of Coco.
Yep.
I think everybody cried at Coco,
Yep.
whether you lost someone or not. So the fact that it was that therapeutic for you speaks volumes to the work that Pixar does with their films. Because it's not the only one that makes you cry.
Yeah, mine is one that most people wouldn't think of, is that movie. It's a comedy drama, 50-50.
Oh, yeah. That's a good
with Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Seth Rogen. It's mostly a comedy, but
Yeah.
there's some emotional and dramatic points to it. I had a close family member that was also sick as well, and so when I was watching, I was just thinking about that the whole time. And then the ending, when Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character, right before he goes into surgery, he kind of breaks down. Like, that part really hit me. So that's it for me. Wendy, do you have one?
You know, till this day, I haven't been able to bring myself, Dustin or I, to be able to watch 50-50. I feel like that. So maybe I didn't see it, but we know it's about cancer, and we lost his brother to cancer years ago, and it's been hard. So it's not like there's two movies. We saw Big Hero 6, and when Hero lost his brother. That got both Dustin and I, where I can't remember which one of us left the theater because it was just so hard. And afterwards, I don't want to say open the wound, but like, you know, you talk about it and you remember him and remember the good times, which brings me to Star Wars, because David was such a huge Star Wars fan. Like Dustin and I, before this job, we used to dress up as Star Wars characters and like, you know, go to kids' birthday parties. And if David could, before he got sick, he would come and like watch, just because he was like in love with Star Wars. He goes, "Look, my brother's a Jedi." So like when The Force Awakens came out, that was like a big thing that we talked about. And we're like, you know, how you know, just how much would David enjoy this, and what do you think he would like this part, and how would he like BB-8 and so on and so forth. And so it's kind of like his memory lives in all these movies for us.
Yeah, it's funny how much movies can affect our lives. Sometimes, you know, obviously it's just entertainment, but that's, I think, why people get so passionate about these things, because it touches them in different ways.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to move on to live Twitter questions. Wendy, what do we got?
The first one comes from Stephen Calderon, who writes, "Hey guys, how many weeks do you think The Last Jedi will stay at number 1?
Quite a while, because what's some big movies? I mean, there's some bigger movies coming out, but I don't think they're going to overtake Star Wars. Like, you know, like, isn't The Post coming out next week or
Jumanji?
something?
I think next weekend is Downsizing, Pitch Perfect 3. Jumanji, I think, is the week after.
The week after.
Or Wednesday. Jumanji's having a Wednesday opening, isn't it? But I think, all right.
20th.
One weekend.
Or December 22nd, yeah.
One weekend here. Then I think it's got another weekend. Then another weekend. Another weekend. Another weekend.
How many weeks is that?
I feel like it's a bold prediction to make, but I'm kind of settling on 5 weekends.
Wow,
That does
5
not
weeks
make
at
any
number
sense.
1.
I must be missing something.
I really don't feel like that's that far-fetched.
Yeah.
I guess.
I really don't.
Especially through January. Yeah, and you're right. There's nothing really big that's coming out. Maybe Maze Runner on January 26th will finally eclipse it. Maybe. But yeah, I think I agree with Perri. 5 weeks. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Well, the reason this is what I wanted to look up. The reason why I think that might be a stretch is because now that I'm looking at Force Awakens, its last weekend with the number 1 rank was weekend 4.
Right.
And I do think that movie is going to have longer legs than this one will.
You think Force Awakens
Force Awakens had longer legs, yeah.
All right, what's next?
This one comes from Jesse Hall, who writes, what are some of your favorite/worst callbacks to an actor's previous work in movies? My favorite is Sly in Tango and Cash. Quote, Rambo was, as he shoots a tanker truck. Thanks.
Oh, I guess Ryan Reynolds in Deadpool making fun of earlier Deadpool in X-Men Origins Wolverine when he had that little figure and he's like, oh, that guy.
I was going to say when he made fun of the Green Lantern suit.
That too. He did both things in that movie, so he was really cleaning the cupboard with making fun of stuff he did before.
It's hard to just recall a little thing like that. I mean, this doesn't really have it. For some reason, the first thing that's popping into my mind is the moment in Logan with the comic books.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, not that is
yeah.
necessarily
That's
a direct
great.
callback to a performance, but that was kind of a way to address, everything that had happened in the X-Men film franchise, but also how us as viewers view the X-Men. And I just thought it was a really smart, touching way to incorporate it into the movie.
This isn't so much like a line that calls back, but just the movie itself, Birdman. You have Michael Keaton playing Birdman because he played Batman, so he kind of touches, kind of like his character.
That's
the actor himself, went through, I'm sure, similar stuff.
Yeah.
All right, what's next?
This one comes from James, who writes, if you were able to give an Academy Award to a comic book movie or a Star Wars movie, which one would you like to see? Thanks, guys. Love you all, and Merry Christmas to you and yours.
I mean, for me, it'd still be Empire if it was a Star Wars movie, and then for movies, it'd be either The Dark Knight or Logan.
I would, even though as I rank my Star Wars movies, I have A New Hope higher than Empire, but if I had to pick one for an award, it would probably be Empire. But just because that season is upon us right now, I'm going to say Logan. I don't think it's going to get very many wins, but I really do hope that it pops up in a few categories for nominations because it really does deserve it.
Yeah, I would say The Dark Knight. I mean, I think that's a crime that it wasn't even nominated that year, and that was the reason they expanded it to 10 categories. That tells you that's how powerful that anger was towards that movie. But I also want to give a sweet little shout out to Superman, 1978 Superman. I think that film deserved a Best Picture Oscar. That is a film that still resonates with a lot of people, multiple generations later. And of course, Empire Strikes. I don't know if you could have any other answer than Empire Strikes Back. To be honest with you,
Wendy, what do you think?
I'd love to see Logan nominated.
oh well, sure.
I would love to see Logan, and then I agree with you guys too on The Dark Knight. Why are you shaking your head?
Because as you say it, I want to see Logan nominated
Logan,
too. But then I'm just picturing where things are falling on the
I
list
know.
of likelihood right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, I
and-
mean, it didn't get nominated for a Golden Globe. It didn't get nominated for
Yeah.
a lot of different critics awards.
Let's not talk about the Golden Globes.
Yeah.
And then no one from Logan got nominated for anything. And
Like
Well,
Patrick Stewart.
Patrick Stewart
Stewart
should have
got
been.
For a Golden Globe?
Critics' Choice.
Oh, Critics' Choice.
Well, but still,
Yeah.
That's still something.
It's still
That's-
recognition.
Yeah, yeah.
What if someone nominated you for Critics' Choice
I'd be
Award?
very happy. But
have that
I
reaction?
prefer the Oscar.
Yeah.
Aim big.
Yeah. All right, what's next?
All right, this one comes from Steven, who writes, which inspires you more, comics or movies?
I mean, movies. I mean, I used to read a lot of comics when I was younger, and I liked them a lot, but now I watch a lot more movies now. So, movies.
I don't think I'd have a choice but to say movies because I didn't read enough comics for them to have the same influence.
I think I agree with Dennis. I think comics are the ones that opened my mind to analyzing movies in a different way. So I would say comics when I was a kid, but certainly movies now.
Yeah.
But when you're reading Dark Knight Returns at like 16 years old, you're like, what is these adult, mature themes they're talking about? So I did nuclear war, all that kind of stuff, you know. So that really opened my mind to that stuff. So when I was watching movies later, as I learned to appreciate them, I was able to analyze them differently because of what had been set forth with Watchmen and Dark Knight Returns and then V for Vendetta after that.
Yeah. All right, what's next?
This one's funny. All right, Rocky Drago 66 writes, what franchise is in worse shape after their fifth
no.
entry underperformed at the box office this year? Pirates or Transformers?
Wait, which of those is in worse shape?
Worst
Yeah.
shape after their fifth entry.
Well, ain't nobody spinning off anything off Caribbean, so Transformers is doing just fine. They're doing Bumblebee, and then someone else is going to step in and take Transformers and do it after Michael Bay. So I think Transformers is just fine.
Yeah, I think Transformers has longer legs in terms of, like the Pirates ones. I'm actually kind of surprised that they're.
Did you like the Pirates one?
I didn't even watch. Oh no, I did. I did watch
Yeah.
the latest one. So this is my take on it. The pirate stuff. The first one was great, and the rest were either mediocre to not so great. But I never watched one of the Pirates and was like physically and emotionally upset after watching it, like Transformers. But I will say that Transformers as a franchise has a bigger appeal. Like with the pirates, I'm just, how much are you going to be able to do with that, right? Like, so I think that Transformers is still in a better spot.
I am not just saying this to pick on you, just a word of warning right off the bat, but I'm going to say the Transformers is in the worse spot than Pirates because the numbers don't lie. Pirates made a significant amount more worldwide, and I believe it also topped the latest Transformers movies when you break it down, domestic and international as well. So to me, that is a sign that folks might finally be catching on and interest is waning.
Well, to counter you, Perri, I would say since Michael Bay is leaving the franchise for now, people are going to be excited to see what this new person comes in and does with the Transformers franchise, if they're going to do better. And people are looking forward to the Bumblebee movie to a degree.
I am because of the director, Travis Knight.
Exactly.
He did Kubo and the Two Strings.
Exactly. So that gets you excited for it. But with Pirates of the Caribbean, you cannot ignore the Johnny Depp stuff. Even J.K. Rowling had to defend Johnny Depp recently because people were upset that he was cast as Grindelwald in the Fantastic Beasts series that's happening. So Johnny Depp is a major negative right now to put in your movie, and so it's a dangerous thing for Pirates. So I think Pirates may have been the illusion is that it's on higher tides, but it's about to sink.
Wow.
Pretty sure it's not an illusion. $800 million at the worldwide box office is not an illusion.
Is that what it did this last one?
What was Transformers?
Transformers was low 605.
Well,
that's
605 is pretty good for a terribly reviewed
but
movie.
when you compare 605 to close to 800, that's a significant difference.
And 1.5 or 1.1, which was the one before.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's fair. Absolutely fair.
Let's do one more.
okay, last one comes from Eric, who writes, do you think The Last Jedi and Episode 9 will cross the $2 billion mark, and will we have a $6 billion trilogy?
Wait, what? The
$2 billion overall. What did
all three of them?
What did Force Awakens make? I don't think they even.
Let's see.
Perri would know.
Well, I have.
Well, Avatar is still number one. Titanic's number two. I think is Force Awakens 3.
Force Awakens did cross $2 billion.
Okay, so
just by itself,
beat Titanic then, right? Overall.
Force Awakens just by itself?
I don't think so.
I get confused with international rankings versus domestic rankings versus worldwide rankings.
Like worldwide. I'm talking about worldwide. Well, I mean, the $2 billion is a worldwide. I'm assuming that it's third.
All-time worldwide, it's Avatar,
Titanic.
then it's Titanic, then it's Force Awakens.
Yeah, so if it crossed 2, I mean, I'm not even sure if Last Jedi is going to cross 2. It might get close. So if I was a betting person, I'd say it'll get close, but won't cross $6 billion for all 3.
Okay, so that's the question. Will each of those films make $2 billion? Is that the question?
Yes.
Well, Rogue One, I don't know if that counts as part of the trilogy
I think
right
he's talking
now.
about the trilogy.
Is barely over
It's
one.
It's its own story.
Then no.
Rogue One is barely over $1 billion.
Yeah.
So I think I'm going to take both of those into account and figure that this might fall right in between the two. I would be shocked if this made over $2 billion.
I would not be shocked because I think there's so much to talk about in this movie that people will want to go back and see it multiple times to either defend it or to have issues with it and make sure that their issues with it are correct. Because people love it. Like we've said earlier a number of times throughout this episode, people love film passionately. And so they want to make sure. Like
Also,
I'm probably going to see it 4 or 5 times.
What you just said is like people, like it's a 2.5-hour movie. It's so much to digest. Like I know I saw it last night for the second time, but it was Dustin's first viewing and he was sitting there scratching his head. He's like, I think I need to see it again. I think based on that, it's going to really bump up the box office sales.
All right, that's it for today's show. Thanks for joining us. I want to thank people joining us at the table today. Perri, where can people find you?
Twitter and Instagram at Perri Nemiroff.
Rocha?
You guys can find me at The Rocha Says on Twitter or Instagram. New episode of The Cinephiles. We covered The Empire Strikes Back today, dropping later on this afternoon.
Wendy?
The Movie Couple channel on YouTube at Wendy Lee Zaney on Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat.
And thanks to Adam and Cody in the back. Hope you guys have a good weekend. You can find me on Twitter at ThinkHero, Instagram, Dennis.tzng. Don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel, youtube.com/Collider Videos. We have tons of Last Jedi reviews and other videos, and we have mailbag this weekend, and we have a lot of stuff going on. So we'll see you guys next time.
Hey everybody, Mark Ellis here. Thanks for watching this episode of Collider Movie Talk. You want to watch more? Then click up here, or you can click right here for more great content from Collider. And if you haven't subscribed to Collider Video, do so right now and share this vid with your friends. Thanks for watching.